Hi everybody, it's Nikki again, and I'm on, I think, part 4 of the T-Slim X2 with Basal-IQ and Mini-Med 670G, manual mode, smart guard with low management features comparison. And I just finished up the 2 algorithms. I was very cheesy in that I was trying to skip over the breakdown of the 670G suspend before low. And it's because I read one line wrong, so I'll take 1 second just to explain what that was. The suspend before low, the reason I did not like it is because you have the option to choose the value at which your pump will suspend if it is at or within 70 points above your low limit. So that 70 wasn't your value, that was within 70 points above your low limit. So if I have my low limit set at 90, then in theory, I could have my pump suspending at 160. And that's a suspend before low. So it was a true preemptive kind of suspend. And as I said, for me, that wasn't a really, really good fit, except for overnight, where I do think it could probably work better. Again, T-Slim, there is no setting anything. There are rules that already are set. You can't adjust any values or anything. But they seem to be really pretty good for most people, because most people that I'm hearing from who are moving over to the T-Slim really like it, and they feel the Basal-IQ is working really well for them. So I don't think that the lack of ability to adjust the settings is hurting that algorithm at all. It seems to just be some pretty decent numbers for a number of us diabetics. Okay. Overrides, that's where I was. Okay, so overriding a suspend on either the 670G or T-Slim X2 means telling my pump to resume my basal delivery even though it is decided it should be suspended. It's veto power, that's what it is. So some people never ever do it. They don't even pay attention to what their pump's doing. I learned to do it all the time, to the point that I was obsessing over overriding everything my pump tried to suspend. Again, that came from being on the 670G, because in general, my suspends tended to be too long. So once I saw a suspend, I usually just hit, to resume insulin. I had to break that habit when I got onto the X2, because I don't need to override. And in fact, the reason I realized I didn't need to override was because I started to find that not every time, but let's say the vast majority of the times that I was overriding the suspend, I would turn around and start to go low, within 20 minutes or 30 minutes. And I started to realize that I was kind of shooting myself in the foot with it. And that if I had just let it do its suspend, what it was doing is it was kind of giving me a nice custom fit reduction. And it was okay. It wasn't sending me high. That was my concern. It wasn't sending me high. So when I say override, what I mean is the ability to kind of turn off your suspend or resume your insulin. There are some consequences to overriding your pump's suspend, and they're not necessarily the same. They're not the same thing for both pumps. For the 670G manual mode, if you override a suspend for any reason, including knowing that your sensor is lagging, and it is yet to reflect a rise in your BG. Again, Guardian, I always feel like I'm picking on them, but it's because that's what my experience was. And sometimes my pump would continue to show me a 40 when my actual blood sugar was like a 112. So if I decided, okay, I do need my insulin, and I went ahead and I decided to override that suspend, it would knock out the ability, it would disable my pump's ability to suspend again. So this means that you cannot do any kind of insulin. You can't do any kind of bolus whatsoever, because the only way to do that is to override it. And once you override it, you've knocked out, the ability to suspend. So it's really very rigid. It's all or nothing, right? It's either you're going to let me suspend for as long as I want to, or if you decide that you don't want the suspend anymore, then I'm going to go ahead and disable the feature. It is, again, this is another complicated set of rules. The only thing I'll say is that it depends on how quickly, whether or not you have decided to override or whether or not you've hit, your max limit, your 2-hour limit. and how quickly you respond to the alert. These are all the things that it's considering in how long to make the feature unavailable. The most important part is the suspend feature can be unavailable from anywhere from 30 minutes up to 4 hours. So again, I don't know the specifics. I can't remember what it is. The longer it takes you to respond, maybe the longer it's unavailable, or something. But in the end, what it means is that if you're hitting your max limit where you lose it for 30 minutes, and then sometimes you're overriding, or you didn't respond to an alarm, but you're losing it for 2 hours, and this thing is suspending frequently throughout the day, really what's happening is you're spending a good chunk of time in a suspend that you may or may not need, and then you're left exposed for periods throughout the day because there is no feature because it's been disabled. So there are consequences for overriding, and it's a really rigid, in my opinion, and I'm sure there's gonna be people who say that they disagree, and it's probably because they, because they had a different experience with it, that's okay, but I'm saying for me, it was really rigid. The T-Slim X2 Basal-IQ. In contrast, if you override a suspend for any of the above mentioned reasons, again, knowing that there's a lag, or wanting a food bolus. Sometimes I've been suspended, but I'm already starting to treat, and now I'm just eating. Call it what you want about my behavior or whatever it is, but if I'm treating a low and now I just really want another bowl of cereal or whatever it is definitely helpful for me to be able to get that insulin on board for that cereal. So rather than having to wait until my suspend ends. So on the T-Slim, if I have been suspended and now I've eaten half a bowl of cereal in order to treat, but I've decided I want another bowl of cereal, I can go ahead, I can override, I can resume my insulin, I can do a bolus for my cereal, and then if the algorithm decides that I'm still too low for my basal, then it suspends me again. So what it means is kind of there's this background suspend taking place, but I'm able to add insulin on top of it. Again, I know some people are not comfortable with that, but I am very comfortable with it, and I need that. That's how when I can avoid the roller coaster, that's how I avoid the roller coaster, is that even if I'm crashing and rebounding and doing whatever, I can add insulin for things, and maybe it means I rebound to a 170 rather than rebound to a 270. So again, I really like the flexibility on the T-Slim. With this unbridled override capability, because there are no consequences to overriding. If I decide to override, it's going to temporarily take me out, and if at the next reading it decides I need to go back in, it's going to suspend me again. So there is no consequence to overriding. I can do it as much as I want to, and as long as I continue to meet the requirements for the suspend, it will automatically pull me back in again. And with that override capability, it does feel like the Basal-IQ is flexible and more accommodating. In my case, it's the best of both worlds, and that's the way it is. It feels like it's going to continue to insist that I take it easy on the basal, but at the same time allow me to do what I want with my insulin. So I like that. That's the third one that I say I like. It's already 9 minutes. Okay, upon reaching the maximum of 2 hours, I'll go ahead and take a break. Thanks for watching. Oh, I'll come back. Bye.